Hello everyone, this is Mandeep Singh 𝐂𝐸𝐭 and today we will be discussing how will you troubleshoot a such connection issue. So like we have already created this content in the Hindi specifically, and there are a lot of requests that this content, this troubleshooting content should be in English as well, since there is not much content available on YouTube which people can refer for the preparation of their cloud support associate or in general these kind of roles. So today we are giving a shot to make that same content kind of similar. All the things which we discussed in Hindi will be discussed here. Some additions which I have learned in a year long, so that I will try to include in this video. So let's start with the problem statement. What is the problem statement we are trying to solve? So basically what you are doing is you are trying to SSH into a remote host. So let's say this is your local machine. Okay, this is your local machine, and from here you are trying to access a remote host. Okay, and how you are trying to do is you are trying to do it via SSH protocol. Okay, so what you are trying to do is when you are trying to connect to this remote host, this connection is not successful or you are failing with some kind of issue. So how will you troubleshoot it? How will you solve this issue? That we are trying to discuss today. So this is the problem statement, which is the first step. You have to understand the problem statement. What's the problem statement? Then we will proceed towards how you can actually solve it. So before moving into the actual details how will you solve it, we should have a understanding what is SSH specifically. So as I said that this is your this is your local machine, and this is your remote machine, and you are trying to do SSH, let's say SSH-i or key file.pem, and this is your IP address. Let's say this. So this is your some IP address. So you are trying to do you are trying to type this command, and you are not able to access your remote host. And what is SSH specifically? This SSH is a networking protocol used to access remote server in a unique way. When we say unique way, it's just a way of saying that we are trying to access the remote host in a secure way, the best secure way possible, so that our connection is not compromised. So this is specifically what you can say SSH. I will share some other documents in the video description. We can also read to get more details around SSH, and in general commands which you can use. Like this is the one command which you can use to SSH into the remote host, but there can be other commands. Okay, some other options which you can use along with SSH. So what are those? How you can refer them? So I will share that document with you, some external links with you which you can refer from the video description and give it a read. That will give you more understanding about what is SSH and how you can use it to access the remote hosts. Moving towards the troubleshooting steps now. So we have understood the problem statement, we have understood what is SSH. Now let's try to troubleshoot the issue that we are not able to access the remote host. So what are the possible steps you can take to solve that issue? The first step you will take is try ping command from your local machine. So as I said, this is your local machine. Let's type ping and the IP address of your the host which you are trying to access. Are you able to do it? So the first thing which you have to do is try to ping that server, ping that remote host. This is like in general way for any network problem. So if you are facing any networking kind of problem, you can try this as a first step to try a ping command, try pinging to that server, try pinging to that remote host, and if you are able to access it or not. What is ping specifically? Ping is in general used to check reachability of host. So this is the example of ping command, the ping and the IP address. You can also type in the web address, let's say ping and then google.com. Okay, and this is the in general description about what kind of what does ping command mean. So it's kind of echo request. Okay, so you will send some kind of packets, some kind of network packets from your local machine, and you will receive some kind of network packets from the remote host. So you are sending some packets and receiving the packets back. That means you are able to establish that connection. So this is the first thing which you have to do to troubleshoot the SSH issue. Number two is checking permissions for accessing the server. So if you want to access any remote hosts, that server will definitely will not be accessible to all the public. Okay, so if that server is not accessible to all the public, it should have permissions specific to your local machine so that you can access it. What are the things which you can take care while you are trying to validate the permissions to access the server? First thing is your server IP correct? Okay, so you entered ping and then IP address. Is that IP address correct? Sometimes it happens that we mistyped that IP address, but is that correct? So just validate it once. Once we are sure that the IP is correct, let's move to second step. What is the second step? SSH key file. We have to validate if we are using the correct key file. So there is a combination of public key and private key which we in general use to access the remote host. So let's take example of AWS EC2 instance. So there will be one key injected on that server and one key available on your local machine, which will be used in combination to make your connection successful. I will also share one document with you where you can read about public and private these key files specifically, so that you will get more details around it. So you have to make sure that the key is injected on your server and you have the valid key on your local machine. That's the first thing which you have to do while validating the SSH key file. Second thing is the file permissions. The file permissions on the SSH key file which you have on your local machine. So first check what are the file permissions you have, ls-l, and then if the permissions are not valid, or let's say you don't have the appropriate permissions, then you have to modify the permissions. You can use chmod command to modify the permissions to 400 or let's say 600. Again, there are a lot of details which we will not be discussing in this video, like what this 600 mean, what this 400 mean, but again I will try to share all these actionable links with you where you can read more around these. Moving to the third point, we have to validate on the SSH port permission. So SSH operates on port number 22. Okay, so SSH operates on port number 22. We have to validate that the remote host, so this is your remote host, right? Let's draw it again. Yeah, so this is your remote host. So when you are trying to access, when you are trying to establish the SSH connection with this remote host should allow the traffic from your local machine. It should not reject that traffic. It should allow that traffic on port number 22. We are trying to access that remote host on port number 22 with some specific web address, with some specific IP. We have our local machine, some IP address. So we are trying to access that. Is that remote host allowing that? Because we mentioned that the remote host will not be allowing traffic from any of the public IPs. We have whitelisted, we have onboarded some kind of specific IPs that can hit to that remote host. So does that remote host has the whitelisting then for that specific IP? So as we said, remote server should allow local machine traffic on port 22. Check remote server networking rules. So you have to validate on the networking rules that your traffic allowed, your local machine traffic is allowed on that particular remote host for port number 22. Moving to the point number 4. So this is the another thing. So to improve security, sometimes what organization do is they change the port number. Okay, so for SSH in general port is 22, but they will change it to, let's say, port number 25. Now SSH operates on port number 25. Okay, now if SSH operates on port number 25, now this first thing is that that local machine user should know that that person has to hit traffic on port number 25 to access, to make the SSH connection, to establish the SSH connection. And another thing is that on port number 25 there should be permissions on the remote host, so that that local machine can establish or try to establish the SSH connection. Moving to fifth point. So we mentioned that we are trying to hit a local machine to remote host. Okay, now are we sure that the traffic is actually reaching to remote host? One way could be the connection actually reached to this remote host and then rejected by it, so that you are getting some permission issue. Okay, another thing is there is something in between, that your remote host is not reachable, or is not actually the traffic is not sent to remote host. It is being rejected in between somewhere. So first thing you have to check is like your network connection. Obviously, like you should have that will be the first step while you start the troubleshooting, that you have the proper internet connection established. Once you are sure that you have the proper internet connection, if you don't have proper internet connection, you have to fix that. But once we are sure that we have the proper proper internet connection to make any of the connections, or you're able to access the public internet or anything on the internet, then you have to check that the network firewall you are behind is allowing traffic on port number 22 from your local machine. What this means is, let's say you are trying to access from your college network, you are college student, so you have some private IP address. Okay, this will be hit to this this will be directed via this college firewall, and then the request is forwarded to actual remote host. Now if this college firewall is not allowing the traffic on port 22, this request will actually be not sent to this remote host but will be reverted back from here only. So you have to make sure that the firewall which is in between you, your local machine, and the remote host is allowing the traffic from your local machine on port 22, so that you can hit the request to the remote host. So this, once you have, like in any of these troubleshooting steps, if you have figured out that this is the issue, then you have to fix that. If that's not the issue, then let's move to the sixth point. You have to check on SSH daemon state. First of all, what is SSH daemon? So SSH daemon is specifically a background process which keeps on running, which helps you to make a connection to that remote host, any of the remote hosts which you are maintaining. So a background process helpful in establishing a secure connection to remote host. So you have to validate that the state of this SSH daemon is in running. Okay, it should be in running. If it's not in running, you have to restart that daemon, or like start the daemon. If it's in stopped state, or if it's stuck state, you have to restart the daemon. This is the in general command which you can use: sudo systemctl restart sshd. This is specifically to Ubuntu command, Ubuntu operating system. So like all the commands which I shared with you, like chmod or like any of the commands which I shared with you, they can vary on operating system. Or the flavor of the operating system you are using. Let's say on Linux you are using CentOS, or you are using Ubuntu. So on depending on that, the commands or the syntax of commands specifically might change or might vary a little bit. So you can refer them, but the in general command will be to restart this SSH daemon will be sudo systemctl restart sshd. Okay, so this is all about how will you troubleshoot SSH connection issue. Let me know in the comment section below if you find this useful, if it helps in you pursuing your dream journey. Let's connect in the next troubleshooting video. Till then, bye bye.